Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I have a new layout to share for Pinkfresh Studio, and I've got a couple things already picked out here from the Happy Blooms collection that I'm going to try to use. I think this color scheme is really pretty, pink, blue, and green, and I'm going to use a black and white photo of me and my oldest daughter from a few years ago. And I'm also going to incorporate one of the Pinkfresh Studio cut files. This one is called Thistle Bloom. And I'm going to make sure that I link everything down below, so if you want to get your hands on any of this, you can click on it and it will take you there. So I wanted to try something a little bit different today and not use cardstock as a background. I'm going to use both of these pattern papers as my background, and these papers are from Happy Blooms, and they're called Together and Cottage. And I wanted the white one with these little leafy floral diamond shapes to be the primary paper, with a little bit of that pink plaid kind of peeking up in the upper left hand corner. So I just sort of tore a chunk off, and I'm going to glue these together to make one background. Now I am going to do some mixed media, and this is something that I like to do on pattern paper backgrounds, and that is use white gesso to kind of fade out a little bit of the pattern. You're still going to definitely be able to see it, but it's just going to soften it up, make it a little bit hazy, and kind of give me a little bit more white space to let the photo and all the embellishments kind of stand out, because sometimes if you use a pattern paper background, things can get a little bit busy because there's so much going on. So in this case, I'm going to use the white gesso to kind of soften up the area where most of the mixed media is going to go, and then where the photo is going to go. And then mainly around the edges, I left it alone, so you can definitely see that pattern a little bit bolder. So I think the photo is going to go right there where it kind of overlaps the torn edge. So it's going to be a little bit on both of the papers. And I thought I would do a little bit of the same technique here, just around where the photo is going to go, with more white gesso, just to kind of fade out some of the pink. And all this really does is just allows the photo to stand out against the patterns and against the colors. And that's why I printed this photo in black and white, because it had some awkward colors and they didn't really go with this particular collection, and so I just made it black and white, and so it would really stand out. And you can see there how the white gesso has faded out some of that background, and it's going to give me some white space and allow everything to kind of show, even though there's some pattern on the background. I'm going to start to play around with everything before I do any mixed media, because I want to see what I want to layer in and what colors are going to go where. Not quite sure yet, so I want to determine that before I start to add the color to the background, because when I first started with this color scheme, I was pulled to that green color, and I'm never pulled to green. Green is never my go-to color, but for some reason I don't know, I kept seeing that grassy green color, and I thought I want to use that on a background. So I was thinking, I'm going to use green watercolor. Who am I? So I wanted to make 100% sure of that. So I wanted to start doing this process first, just to see if the green was a good idea or if I needed to go with blue. Since I've got that big pink chunk in the upper left hand corner, I feel like there's plenty of pink going on, so I don't want to do a big area of pink watercolor. So I want to either use the blue or the green, and at this point I just wasn't sure yet. I'm just trying to incorporate anything that's green, blue, or pink. I love those butterflies, those little strawberries, so cute. So I pulled out my lovely Kuretake set of watercolors that I've had for years. I mean years. I am going to incorporate a little bit of the Pinkfresh Studio liquid watercolor, but they are almost all sold out. And in case you didn't know, Pinkfresh Studio is discontinuing their liquid watercolors. And the last time I checked, there were only 4 colors left. They're all $3, which is half off. So I wanted to make sure I got the colors that I wanted on this layout. So I pulled out my little watercolor palette here, and we're just going to start to do some packaging technique here. So I thought I would start with a little bit of green and blue mixed together. So yeah, I'm just going to flip the plastic over and start to smush it down just to get a base going, and see how this is going to look. I think that everything that's pink, like those little strawberries, are really going to stand out against this background since it's such a contrasting color. So yeah, I just wanted to start here and see where it takes me. I'm going to also just apply the color directly to the paper using a brush, adding water. Now, this technique, if you're unfamiliar with mixed media or the gesso or what the gesso does, the gesso that I put on first, that white stuff, it basically is a primer. It sort of creates a barrier between the paper and all this liquid that I'm adding, and it allows the color to kind of stay wet for a little bit. It doesn't immediately dry and soak right through the paper. If you were to try this technique just on this pattern paper plain, it would immediately start to soak through the paper and it would look exactly as it is. Do you see how I'm able to kind of move the color around and dab it up and blend it? That's because of the gesso. So that is why I use gesso so frequently, is because it just allows you to do so much. And if you make a mistake and you think, I don't like the way that looks, you have time to dab it up and get rid of it, you know? So that's all I'm doing here, is I'm playing with some blues and greens with my brushes and just moving the color around and seeing how it looks. Like I said, I wanted some of that blue color, I wanted some of the green, and we're gonna see how this looks. At this point, I'm liking how it's looking. And you know, a lot of times people will ask, well, if you're gonna use pattern paper for the background, why do you cover it all up with the gesso? And in this case, I feel like you can still most definitely see the pattern on that paper. It's not completely covered up. Now the part where the watercolor is, yeah, it's pretty much covered up, but I did that on purpose, you know. I feel like that's sort of creating a little bit of a solid space where this blue watercolor is. It's coming across as a solid color. There's no pattern on it, and so it's going to enhance the photo and make it stand out a little bit more. I hope that makes sense, you know. And you could totally create this same layout with this collection and omit the mixed media altogether. You know, it's just a passion of mine. I love doing mixed media, and it just, I don't know, I like making it my own, and I feel like mixed media allows you to do that, you know. But you could do the same exact layout and just leave the mixed media out and it would still work, I think. So I just kept playing with it. I let it dry. It's almost dry, and I love how this is looking. I love that you can see the blue and you can see the green, and I'm glad I went with blue mostly, with just a little bit of green added in at this point. This is just white acrylic paint, and I like to water it down slightly to make it a little bit thinner, and then I like to use a brush to just splatter it around. And again, this just adds a little bit of interest and lightness to the layout, and it's gonna add a little bit of hazy, faded, cloudy look to the pink pattern paper up top, because it's hard for me to leave papers as is. Like I said, I like doing mixed media and trying to jazz it up a little bit, and I think just by adding a little bit of white to papers like this, it just gives it a little bit of a weathered effect and just gives it a little something else. Plus, I just like getting my fingers dirty and making a mess, you know. It's all good. So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to start to work on layering up some things behind the photo. At this point, I'm going to just use a little bit of white tissue paper. This is just plain gift wrap tissue paper. It's nothing expensive. And it just creates the start of a little bit of a layer behind the photo there. And then I'm going to use a couple of these envelopes that are from one of the die cut packs in this collection. And I wanted to have something pink, something blue, and something green. So that green piece is another die cut. I just tore it in half. And I just want the green edge kind of peeking out at the top there. And I'm using the Scotch tacky glue in my bottle there. I always get asked what kind of glue I'm using, and I love that glue. It's my favorite. And I've had that fine liner bottle for a few years now. That's why it's so dirty and so weathered looking, because my gessoed and painted up hands are always touching it. So yeah, that's why it looks like it does. Yeah, I'm going to keep using it until it croaks on me. I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive foam to the back of the photo there so I can raise it up off the page a little bit. And then kind of start to work on those die cuts again and see if I like how this is looking or if I want to add to the background and do some more. I've got some die cuts picked out there. I love those little strawberries. They're so cute. I hadn't even planned on using any of the fruits on this layout because there's some lemons, some pears, and some strawberries, but they just matched and I thought it was cute and it gave me an idea for a title. So I just thought, let's just play around with it and see if it's going to work. And you know, that's another thing that I've learned over time from scrapbooking is, you know, I have a habit, and I still do this though, when you know, you get a collection and you pull out all the die cuts or all the stickers and you start looking through them and you think, I'm never going to use that, I'm never going to use that, I'm never going to use that. And that's what I was saying about the strawberries. I thought I'm never going to use these strawberries, and look at, what do you know, I'm using the strawberries. So never discount anything that you see in a collection, because there could be a chance where you will use it even though you said you wouldn't, because you know, it may match. You may have a picture where it goes perfectly with your theme. Yeah, you know, in this case I started pulling everything out because I was looking for things in a specific color, and then lo and behold, I like how it looked, so we're gonna go with it. So yeah, never say never. So what I thought I would do now is add a little bit more pink to the pink part, because if you see that one die cut, that's the phrase little banner piece, it's more of like a brighter pink color, and I like that pop of that pink that it added against the other two shades of pink. And so I thought, well, let me add a little bit of that up to the top here to kind of pull a little bit of that pink up to this area. And I'm able to kind of do a little bit of blending like I did before, because I did smudge a little bit of gesso there. And this is just going to be very subtle, nothing too crazy, but just to add a little bit of depth to this pink paper and to kind of help bring that pink to that part of the page. Because I feel like if I'm going to use one item of one color, I need to have something else of that color in at least one or two more places somewhere on the layout, just to kind of help it all come together. You know, that's not something that you have to do. It's just something I like to do. One thing or another thing, since I'm talking about things I've learned, is that there are no rules in scrapbooking. You can do whatever you want. As long as you like it and you think it looks good, do it, you know? I tend to kind of come up with little rules for my own scrapbooking. Like, I like to scatter colors around the layout, or I like to situate my photos in a certain spot on the layout depending on where their faces are looking. You know, in this case, we're both looking straight forward, so I feel like the photo could pretty much go anywhere on this layout, but I always like to have, you know, the people in the photo looking in toward the page. But in this case, we're looking straight, so they can go anywhere. I got some puffy stickers here, some more die cuts, some stickers, all kinds of things from this collection. I'm going to start to work on some thread. I'm going to layer in a little bit of that blue color. And the thread is just something I have in my stash. I have lots of colors of thread, and it's just regular sewing thread. It's nothing fancy or expensive. And I just like the texture this gives the layout. It adds little pops of color. And yeah, it just kind of adds to the whole messy mixed media background effect, I think. And I just like to tuck it underneath things so you can see it kind of tumbling out from underneath layers and things. And then I'm going to use two of those little die cuts of the thistle bloom that I cut. And I just cut those on plain white cardstock, and I'm going to leave them white. And they're going to kind of come out between, or on top and below the photo there. And I'm just going to glue things down at this point. Not sure how I'm going to situate the butterflies. I do want to layer in some of these little phrase die cuts kind of on top of the bottom of the photo there. And then work in the strawberries somewhere. And that little phrase die cut that is that darker, brighter pink color. I'm going to add a little bit of foam behind the strawberries, since I'm going to layer those right there. And since the photo was popped up, I want to make sure that everything is the same level. So that's where the foam comes in handy. And then I play around with some of these other little bits. I'm not quite sure where they're going to go yet, so I took a break. And guess what? The background is still not done. I felt like there wasn't enough green, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to come back in with that green color and just add it down so it's kind of cascading down from the blue section. And I'm glad I did this because I think it just enhances that green color, and it just goes so pretty with the blue. All of these colors are just so springy and bright, and I love that the green is sort of echoed all through that white background paper too. It's very small and subtle, but you can still pick it out of all those little designs. So I'm starting to think of a title, you know, and where it's going to go. So I think pretty much it's going to go underneath the photo there, kind of to the left of the strawberries where that leaf is poking out. I think the title is going to go there. And then I'm going to try to bring some more of these stickers that I don't know where to go or where to put those kind of underneath the title. So we're going to see how that plays out, but I'm going to go ahead and glue down the rest of these die cuts. I want to use this little sticker that says "Love This," and it's going to wind up moving a couple times, but right now it's going to go right there at the top of the photo. And then I don't know where to put those two other little stickers, but I do use the two butterflies. Try to use that little memories together piece. And then in the die cut pack, there are these two little words. One is home, and I thought about using that. The other one is life. So I think it's home life if you're going to use the two words together. I don't wind up using home though. I do wind up using life, and I'm going to mix and match it with some other things here though in just a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. Making sure all this is glued down first because I know that that's where it's going to go. And I thought about using the scripty home word, but in that little die cut it says "at home together," so I didn't want to use home too many times. I did find another strawberry. It's a tiny one from the stickers, so I'm going to cut that out, add it to the little cluster of strawberries there, and then come back in with some thread. And I came back in with the pink color just to kind of add a little bit of that color underneath that die cut area where the leaf is sticking out. And I'm kind of creating a little nook for part of a title to go, because now I have where the thistle bloom cut file is kind of coming down, and then where the strawberries are. So I'm kind of didn't really mean to create that, it's just how it happened. Okay, so now for the title, I definitely wanted to use that life die cut, and I'm going to make the word sweet out of these green puffy alphas, but I'm going to change the color. You know, I know that the title Sweet Life is pretty common, but we're going to go with it because I have those strawberries and it was just, it made sense. Now this is how you can alter the color. Just dab a little bit of white gesso on top of these letters. Now let it dry and then do a couple of coats, and then you just paint over it. I did the same technique on my previous layout for Pinkfresh Studio and it worked so well, and I thought I'm going to do it again. I wanted it to be more of that grassy green color instead of the darker green, and then have a little bit of the blue mixed in. So I'm going to kind of create, I guess you could call it an ombre effect with the blue and the green, and just paint these letters, and it turned out so nice. And it only took a couple minutes. And here you can see how it turned out when it dried. I think it turned out really nice. I've got kind of a faded look from going from the blue at the top down into the green, and I feel like it matches this background a lot better. And then I wanted to bring a little bit of that bolder, brighter pink into this life die cut. So I'm just going to dab a little bit of that pink watercolor onto these letters here. I didn't use any gesso or anything because I'm not doing too much. I'm just barely dabbing it on there just to kind of liven up the pink, to kind of add a couple of different shades of that and to kind of bring that color down into the title area. And then I put the letters right where I wanted them to go, and they fit right there perfectly. I was so happy with that. And then I decided to bring in some pears. You know, I thought we have the strawberries, The pears are that green color that I'm looking for on this layout, and there were several little pears on the stickers, the die cuts. There was a little tiny one in one of the pattern papers, so I'm going to basically create a little pear cluster to have the life overlap it down there at the bottom. And I'm trying to decide if I want to put pears everywhere or create a cluster. I'm adding one right there into the strawberries, and then I'm going to add two down here where the title goes. I'm going to pop this up to add a little bit of dimension. And then I love how the life looks layered on top of it. And then this one that I layered on top of that is a sticker that I cut out, and it says, "You're so sweet," something like that. And then the stickers that I couldn't find a home for earlier, I'm going to make them work down here underneath the pears to bring some blue and some pink further down the layout. So this layout is becoming more vertical than I had originally planned, but you know what? That's part of the fun of making a layout is, you know, things change as you go and ideas develop and change, and you just kind of go with it. And so that's where it's gonna go. So yeah, I hadn't even planned on using any of the fruit, and here we go. Like I said before, I never thought I would use it, and now I'm using a lot of it. The title, this is the perfect spot for it to go right here behind, or not behind, on top of the green watercolor area. And I'm going to use my black fine tip Sharpie. Since the photo's black and white, I felt like using black ink for the journaling would work well. And then I'm going to start to glue down everything that isn't glued down at this point. And I'm liking how this is looking. I do add a bit of a layer of a little piece of something that has blue on it behind that sticker up at the top, just to add a little something there. Or I try to make it work. Yeah, there we go. No, we don't. Do I take it off? This layout took me probably 3 days to work on, so yeah, it seemed like it just took forever to finish. That's what I did. I tore a piece of the envelope and stuck it up there, so there was a little strip of blue. And then the final thing I'm going to do is add in, you know, my favorite little things to add bling and sparkle, and that is some of the Essentials jewels. I'm using green, blue, and pink, and I'm just going to scatter those here and there in various places around the layout. And then that is it. There's the final page. I love how this turned out. I really, really think it's a cute color scheme. And I was so excited to use things that I didn't think I would use. The strawberries and the pears. It worked with the color scheme. And you can see all the little, the jewels there and how sparkly and shimmery they are. The jewels kind of change color based on what's around them and the light, the way the light hits them. They are so sparkly and shimmery, and I love those. I use those on so many layouts. But I took tons of close-ups here so you can see all the details and all the textures and the stickers, the die cuts, the watercolor, all of the things. But yeah, I hope this gave you some ideas to try, or, you know, spark something to help you get your next layout started. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to link everything that is available in the Pinkfresh Studio store down below so you can get your hands on any of it. And I want to say thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. I hope you have a great week.